Picture two colossal empires, the Ottoman and the Safavid, locked in a fierce embrace, a dance of power and influence that would echo through the centuries. Imagine them as titans, their shadows stretching across the landscape of the 16th and 17th centuries, their destinies intertwined in a complex web of conflict and competition. They were locked in a centuries-long rivalry, a grand game played out on the chessboard of the Middle East, shaping its borders, its cultures, and its very identity. This wasn't a fleeting skirmish, it was a sustained, multi-generational struggle that defined an era. These empires weren't just neighbors sharing a fence, they were fierce adversaries, locked in a perpetual struggle, battling relentlessly for power, for control of vital lands, and ultimately, for the very soul of Islam, each vying to be seen as the true defender of the faith. This wasn't merely a political contest, it was a deeply spiritual one. The Ottomans, with their capital in the majestic city of Constantinople, the heart of their power, led the Sunni world, wielding immense influence with their vast, well-disciplined armies, and a sprawling empire that stretched across continents. Their military might was legendary, their reach seemingly limitless. The Safavids, ruling from the culturally rich city of Isfahan, championed Shia Islam with unwavering zeal, becoming its primary protector and propagator. Their devotion to their faith was a cornerstone of their identity and a driving force behind their policies. This created a deep religious and political divide, a chasm that separated the two empires and fueled their antagonism. The Sunni-Shia schism became a central element in their conflict, coloring every aspect of their relationship. This wasn't just a squabble about territory or resources, it was a clash of civilizations, a collision of ideologies and ambitions that reverberated throughout the region. It was a struggle for dominance, for legitimacy, and for the right to define the future of the Islamic world. The main prizes in this grand game were strategically vital regions like Iraq, with its holy sites and fertile lands, the Caucasus, a gateway between Europe and Asia, and eastern Anatolia, a crucial buffer zone and a source of valuable resources. These territories were the battlegrounds where the fate of empires would be decided. Control of these areas meant access to lucrative trade routes, vital natural resources, and perhaps most importantly, enhanced religious prestige, solidifying their position as leaders in the Islamic world. Every hard-fought battle, every protracted siege, and every act of betrayal added another chapter to this epic saga, a story of constantly shifting fortunes and relentless tension that defined the relationship between these two great powers. But the cost of this relentless conflict was immense. The constant wars drained the empire's treasuries, leaving them vulnerable, devastated once thriving cities, turning them into desolate ruins, and left countless generations with the scars of conflict, knowing only a life of hardship and uncertainty. The human toll was staggering. By the early 1600s, a sense of exhaustion began to permeate both empires. The endless cycle of war had taken its toll. Both empires faced mounting internal and external threats, from rebellious factions within their borders to ambitious rivals seeking to exploit their weaknesses. The seemingly endless struggle began to feel unsustainable, a burden too heavy to bear. The leaders of both empires started to question whether there was a better way forward. The stage was finally set for a potential turning point, a moment of reckoning that could alter the course of history. The possibility of a treaty, a formal agreement that could finally bring a lasting change to the turbulent relationship between these two great empires, was on the horizon. At the heart of the Ottoman-Safavid conflict were two explosive issues, religion and territory. The Ottomans, staunch Sunnis, saw the Safavid promotion of Shia Islam as a threat to their authority and stability. The Safavids viewed the Ottomans as illegitimate rulers, oppressing Shia Muslims. This religious divide made compromise nearly impossible, especially in places like Iraq, home to sacred Shia shrines. Baghdad, Mosul, and Basra became battlegrounds, changing hands in brutal campaigns. The struggle extended to the Caucasus and eastern Anatolia, regions of shifting loyalties and constant warfare. Control of these lands meant resources, security, and dominance over vital trade routes. Both empires sought buffer zones to protect their cores, fueling a cycle of conflict. For generations, the people of these regions lived under the shadow of war, with peace always out of reach. The borderlands were written in blood, not ink. Decades of war devastated entire regions, fields burned, cities besieged, and populations uprooted. The cost was staggering: famine, displacement, and suffering for ordinary people. Both empires poured resources into endless campaigns, draining treasuries and stifling economic growth. Heavy taxes and conscription bred discontent and rebellion at home. Internal stability suffered as ambitious governors and factions exploited the chaos. The Ottomans faced revolts in Anatolia. The Safavids struggled with threats on other frontiers. By the 1630s, war weariness gripped both sides, and the hope of total victory faded. Leaders in Constantinople and Isfahan realized the conflict was unsustainable. The endless struggle left both empires vulnerable to new threats. The time had come to seek peace, not just survival. The road to the Treaty of Kasr-i Shirin in 1639 was a long and arduous one, marked by decades of conflict and shifting power dynamics between the Ottoman and Safavid empires. This treaty, a landmark agreement in the history of the Middle East, didn't emerge from a vacuum. It was the culmination of years of brutal warfare, political maneuvering, and ultimately, a shared recognition of the unsustainable costs of perpetual conflict. It was paved by exhaustion and necessity. Both empires, stretched thin by constant campaigns and internal strife, found themselves at a crossroads. The seemingly endless cycle of raids, sieges, and battles had taken a heavy toll on their economies, their populations, and their overall stability. The land itself bore the scars of war, a constant reminder of the devastation wrought by unchecked ambition. Sultan Murad IV's recapture of Baghdad, a pivotal moment in the conflict, was a costly victory, achieved through immense sacrifice and leaving the Ottoman army weakened and depleted. The siege itself was a brutal affair, resulting in heavy casualties on both sides and leaving the city in ruins. While it solidified Ottoman control over a strategically important territory, it also exposed the limits of their military might, highlighting the limits of Ottoman power. The vastness of their empire, coupled with the persistent challenges of logistics and internal rebellions, made it increasingly difficult to sustain a prolonged war against a determined adversary like the Safavids. Shah Safi I, reeling from defeat and facing internal challenges to his rule, faced a weary Safavid state desperate for stability. The Safavid Empire, already weakened by previous conflicts and internal divisions, was struggling to cope with the economic and social consequences of the ongoing war. The people were exhausted, the treasury was depleted, and the future looked bleak. Both sides recognized, albeit grudgingly, that continued war risked further disaster, potentially leading to the collapse of their respective empires. The specter of internal rebellion, economic ruin, and widespread famine loomed large, forcing both rulers to reconsider their options. Negotiations were tense, protracted, with envoys shuttling proposals across blood-soaked frontiers, each side wary of the other's intentions. The process was fraught with suspicion and mistrust, a reflection of the deep-seated animosity that had characterized their relationship for generations. The Ottomans, holding the upper hand due to their recent military successes, pressed their advantage, seeking to secure favorable terms that would solidify their control over key territories and resources. They aimed to establish a clear and defensible border that would minimize the risk of future conflicts. But new peace required compromise, a willingness to concede certain points in order to achieve a lasting settlement. They understood that a peace imposed solely through force would be unlikely to endure. Diplomacy demanded firmness and flexibility, a delicate dance of asserting their interests while remaining open to negotiation. A delicate balance after decades of enmity, requiring both sides to overcome deeply ingrained prejudices and historical grievances. It was a test of their leadership and their ability to envision a future beyond the endless cycle of war. On May 17, 1639, after months of intense negotiations, the treaty was signed at Kasr-i Shirin, a town strategically located near the contested border, symbolizing the end of a long and bloody chapter in the history of the Ottoman and Safavid empires. It wasn't just a ceasefire, it was far more significant than a simple cessation of hostilities. It was an attempt to redefine relations between two powerful empires, to move beyond the cycle of conflict and establish a framework for peaceful coexistence, and create a lasting order, a stable and predictable relationship that would benefit both sides. Both empires agreed to formal borders, clearly demarcated and mutually recognized, and mechanisms to prevent future conflict, including diplomatic channels for resolving disputes and protocols for managing border security. It was a hard-won turning point, a testament to the power of diplomacy and the enduring human desire for peace. Proof that even bitter rivals could choose diplomacy over endless war, laying the foundation for a period of relative stability in the region. The Treaty of Kasr-i Shirin stands as a reminder that even after decades of conflict, peace is always possible. The Treaty of Kasr-i Shirin, or Zuhab, redrew the map of the Middle East. The Ottomans secured Iraq, Baghdad, Mosul, and Basra, gaining strategic depth and control over key trade routes. The Safavids, though losing Baghdad, gained recognition of their rule in the Caucasus, stabilizing their northern frontier. The treaty's borders, with minor changes, still define much of today's Turkey-Iran and Iran-Iraq boundaries. Beyond territory, the treaty aimed to ease sectarian tensions. The Safavids agreed to curb anti-Sunni practices. The Ottomans allowed Shia pilgrimages to holy sites. These measures sought to manage religious friction and promote coexistence. The result was a rare period of peace, letting both empires recover and refocus. While tensions lingered, Kasr-i Shirin set a precedent for negotiation over war. It marked a shift from ideological crusade to pragmatic coexistence. The legacy of Kasr-i Shirin endures, a testament to the enduring power of diplomacy and its profound impact on the course of history. The borders it set, though centuries old, still shape the region, influencing the relationships between nations and the lives of millions. These lines on the map, drawn in ink long ago, continue to define territories and spark both cooperation and conflict. A treaty from 1639, a relic of a bygone era, continues to influence the geopolitics of Turkey, a nation straddling both Europe and Asia, its identity shaped by its historical interactions with its neighbors. Iran, with its rich cultural heritage and strategic location, and Iraq, a land scarred by conflict yet resilient in spirit, both bear the imprint of this ancient agreement. The treaty's influence extends to their economies, their security concerns, and their aspirations for the future. It's a powerful reminder, a stark illustration of how decisions made at the negotiating table can reverberate through generations, shaping the destinies of nations and the lives of ordinary people. Diplomatic decisions can echo for centuries, their consequences unfolding in ways that even the most astute diplomats could not have foreseen. The treaty serves as a historical case study, demonstrating the long-term ramifications of international agreements. Kasr-i Shirin showed that even after a century of war, a period marked by intense religious and political rivalries and devastating conflicts that ravaged the land, peace through negotiation is possible, a testament to the enduring human capacity for reason and compromise, even in the face of seemingly insurmountable obstacles. The treaty established the principle of defined borders, a crucial step towards stability and predictability in international relations, replacing the ambiguity and fluidity that had characterized the region for so long. And mutual recognition, cornerstones of modern international relations, principles that underpin the global order and provide a framework for peaceful coexistence and cooperation among nations. The rivalry shifted from religious crusade to strategic competition, a pragmatic adjustment that allowed both empires to pursue their interests without resorting to constant warfare, paving the way for a more stable and predictable relationship. Allowing both empires to survive, to flourish, and to contribute to the rich tapestry of human civilization, their legacies still visible in the art, architecture, and culture of the region. The lesson: even the fiercest enemies can find common ground, a glimmer of hope in a world often marred by conflict and division, a reminder that dialogue and understanding can bridge even the widest divides. When war becomes unbearable, when the human cost of conflict outweighs any perceived gain, and when the desire for peace finally triumphs over the impulse to fight, the cost of conflict is immense, a devastating toll on human lives, economies, and societies, leaving scars that can last for generations. The value of diplomacy, immeasurable, a vital tool for preventing conflict, resolving disputes, and building a more peaceful and prosperous world for all. As we look at today's Middle East, a region grappling with complex challenges and profound transformations, we see how old treaties still shape new realities, influencing political dynamics, economic development, and the everyday lives of people across the region. The echoes of Kasr-i Shirin remind us, a constant whisper from the past, urging us to learn from history and to strive for a more peaceful future. The past is never truly past. It continues to shape our present and influence our future, its lessons echoing through the corridors of time. It lives on in the lines we draw and the peace we seek, a constant reminder of the enduring power of diplomacy and the importance of striving for a world where dialogue triumphs over conflict.